Hey everybody, welcome to the Life's Worth Living podcast. I'm your host, John Gossett, and I'm grateful for all of you coming back and doing another episode with us. We are on our 7th episode, and we are so grateful for all of you that have taken the time out of your week to watch or listen to this podcast. One of the really cool things, and I mentioned it last week, I believe, was because of all of your rates and your reviews, we are now charting on Apple. So really kind of a big deal to us. This podcast, as of right now, we're being heard in 7 countries around the world. So I think it's really cool. Who knew that anybody was actually going to show up and listen to me? So anyhow, I appreciate you. We're so grateful for GTM Builders. They've given us a beautiful model home to host this podcast in and record, and we're so grateful for them. If you're in the market for a new home and you're in Tooele County, come find one of their 4 model homes. They're absolutely gorgeous, and they've got realtors in-house. I can't remember what time they open, but they are here until 6. So find one of their model homes, come look at what they can offer you, and even if you're looking at building outside the county, come talk to the folks at GTM. They're amazing, and we can't thank them enough. One other shout out I'd like to give them is this Saturday, we were supposed to be doing our 100-mile walk to Windover, and GTM, long before, earlier in the year when we were in the planning stages, they were one of our major sponsors for the walk to Windover. So GTM, we haven't forgot you. We still are going to walk as soon as this COVID-19 is over. We're social distancing. We're keeping our distance here. But tonight we've got a really special program planned for us. And we're going to address a topic that I think a lot of times kind of is in the shadows. It doesn't get brought up a lot. And so I can't thank our guest enough for being brave enough and being willing to talk about this. We're going to be talking about pornography. We've talked about addictions before, but we haven't talked about pornography as an addiction. And in the 4 years that I've worked in addiction recovery, we know this is a lot larger of a problem than probably gets discussed or brought up. And we're going to bring it up tonight. We're going to talk about some of those things, because if you think you're the only person that may be struggling with this, you're not. It's much more common than you'd believe. In fact, I'm bust out my phone. I want to share some statistics. I want to share some statistics tonight with you. Now, there is an online, I'm not even going to use the name of the company, but there is an online pornography distributor that you can view pornography on their website. And it's probably the largest, it's probably the biggest in maybe the country or the world. And they've released their numbers. They're really proud of these numbers. I'm not proud of the numbers, but I think it's important to know these numbers. Last year, in 2019, they had 42 billion, that's billion with a B, 42 billion visits. They had 39 billion searches.
So crazy.
115 million a day visits. Now, I had heard a stat saying that if you went back all the way to when the Wright brothers flew their first airplane, all the way till today, that's how much pornography you could view. They were wrong on the one that I had listened to. It's actually 169 years worth of streaming pornography on their site currently. So that takes you back to 1851. If we went back to 1851, you could watch and never see a rerun for 169 years. One of the other things that I think is disturbing is in one day, they're getting over 18,000 terabytes downloaded per day.
So crazy.
And lastly, in 1 minute on their website, they're getting over 80,000 visits and almost 78,000 searches per minute. And so if you think this is a problem that shouldn't be discussed, I'm here to tell you it definitely needs to be discussed. You might be saying, why would Life's Worth Living be talking about pornography addiction? How does that relate to suicide? In the 4 years that I have been working in addiction, I would say in pornography addiction groups, you're seeing about a third of the people mention that there's self-loathing, that there's self-hate, that leads them to feel like maybe it'd be better off if they were not here. And many of those are in suicidal crisis. And so that's all I'm going to say about this, but I want to introduce my guest. We're bringing you tonight Isaac and Whitney Lambert. Thanks, you guys, for coming and hanging out with me.
Yeah.
They've driven all the way out to Tooele, and they're going to share their story. And so I want you to be thinking about this as you're listening to it tonight, is if this is something that is familiar to you, this back and forth husband-wife discussion. Is this something familiar to you? And if there is, at the end, we're going to have a challenge, and hopefully we're going to stop the shame and everything that comes along with this. So I'm going to get out of the way and have you guys take me back 14 years ago when you were married, or actually back up even before that. Talk to me, Isaac, about how this all started.
Yeah. So I've been dealing with pornography majority of my life. The first interaction with pornography was I was 12 years old, and the thing is, through my teenager years, I struggled through it and stuff, and so I spoke to my religious leaders and people that could help me overcome this. And but in high school I dated a lot of girls, and I was up and down. It was kind of like a roller coaster. Like I was off and then on, off and on, and then I met this girl over here my senior year, and I don't know, I felt very different with her. I felt very different. So I didn't kiss her. Took me like 2 months before I even took that challenge.
And you hung on for that.
I was only 16. I had never been kissed. He was my first kiss. And I was like, I almost peed my pants because I was so nervous.
That would have ruined the moment.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, we had he was my first date. We were actually set up by a friend. His best friend at the time was my best friend's older brother. So they were like, you guys are the same person. You need to go out on a date. And I had to ask someone to morp because I just turned 16. And so they told me to ask Isaac. And I asked Isaac, even though he didn't know who I was. He had to look me up in the yearbook.
Yeah,
that's embarrassing.
I had no clue.
He's like this, hot senior that's like having to look up all these girls that are asking him out because he didn't know who I was. But yeah, that whole his whole senior year, my whole sophomore year, we dated, and then and it was kind of like a summer love story for sure. We did not leave each other's sight for that whole time, and then he went on to serve an LDS mission, and we wrote the entire time he was gone because I was kind of smitten. I mean, he was more smitten than I was. I was like, crap, I got hooked.
And that's actually a cool deal when you actually have a girl that waits. You don't get the Dear John letter saying, hey, I'm out. But so that's cool.
Yeah.
And then, right before my mission, I got cleaned up, and I talked to my religious leader, and he said I was good to go. And I served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I got worthy to go on that mission, and so I served the Lord for 2 years, and then I was good. I didn't have any slip-ups or anything like that, and then I got home, and I got home, and then I followed my wife to college, Snow College. Nice. And then after that, we a few months down the road, I proposed to her. So, yeah.
She said yes because she's here.
I know. I feel like I had to kind of convince him. He was like, oh my gosh, you dated while I was gone. And I'm like, of course I dated, but I knew I was going to end up with him in the end. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, he proposed in October. You came home in August, and we got married on New Year's Eve of 2011.
Nice.
Yeah. So, it was awesome.
Yeah. And then with that, being in the church and stuff, I didn't really know. I knew a little bit about sex and stuff like that, but I didn't really really know how to do it. That's embarrassing, but
I won't tell you. Just did.
Pretty much, I started doing research, and then I saw a few things, and then that triggered me back into the addiction.
Mm-hmm. And so you're 21.
Yeah, I was 21.
21, yeah.
Yep.
And we had just gotten married, and he had told me at that time after we were married that he had an issue with it growing up. And I really was super naive. We both were obviously super young, didn't really know much about anything, and we just were like crazy in love. That's pretty much all we knew. And so, but at first it took me so by surprise, and I didn't really know. I had no idea what the road ahead was gonna come with, and I think if I would have known, if we know what we're gonna face, we're gonna back out quick.
Oh, yeah.
But so I'm grateful for that. But I was pretty naive to it. But he's been open the entire time, which has been something that's been really, I think, what saved our marriage for sure. And so he just started to struggle with it a lot as we first got married. And then I was a supervisor at Victoria's Secret, and that also was a trigger for him as well. And I didn't even think about that, because I've never had that issue, and I'm the oldest in my family and the only girl, so I didn't know that was even a thing. And so it was a long struggle for a little while.
Yeah. And so the little fast forward about 4 years around there, we moved to, to rewind, sorry, I apologize. But, so we moved to Ephraim, we went to college, we lived in a studio apartment and stuff. But the thing is, the more I looked at it, the more I changed. I started isolating myself. Whenever she was gone, I would look at it. In class and stuff like that, and then also it would just change me as a person. I would get very anxious, and then also I would lose my temper very quickly. It was just like a flip of a switch. And every time that I did look at it, I told Whitney. I felt like I shouldn't keep a secret and stuff like that. But I just felt so bad because I know better. And when you are committed to be married, you honor and cherish your wife.
Sure.
But the thing is, if you're looking at that garbage, you're not doing that. You're not honoring and cherishing your wife.
Yeah.
Well, and you talk about changes that it made to you. We talked about that a little bit, and talk about some of the changes just real briefly. What were some of the changes that you noticed? You noticed anger or aggression. I think you said impulse control.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the others? Or rational thinking.
Rational thinking, and then also I don't.
Mainly irrational, and impulses are big, but the anger combined with all of that, that's kind of like the cocktail of what would happen. And I really relate to Beauty and the Beast, because he really would just get so angry. He was never physical ever at all, but really angry and mean. And that's how I knew, even though he was always straight up front with me when things happened, but I would know, you can see it in him that he would change. And as years went by, it would get worse and worse and worse physically, that you could physically see when he had looked, you know what I mean? And so, pornography is like cocaine to your brain. It really can change your brain, and it can change different impulses to things that you would do and react.
Releases those same chemicals into your brain.
Exactly. Yeah. And then also the more you look at it, the more so the thing is, the more you look at it, it's never enough. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, if you looked at something, you have to look at something harder. Mm-hmm. To get that same reaction, the same high.
Almost like a drug,
exactly.
Where a lot of people use a gateway drug like marijuana to start, but pretty soon marijuana's not fulfilling the need, so they amp it up a little bit and keep going. So same type of deal.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So and so we moved away from Ephraim, and then we decided to move in with her parents because we're just poor college students.
No, we got in a car accident.
Oh yeah, car accident.
We got T-boned on the freeway.
Wow.
On Highway 6.
When we were trying to move to Orem, and we got T-boned in Spanish Fort Canyon, and I remember seeing the car coming out at 60 miles an hour because it's a left-hand turn onto the freeway. Yes. Whoever invented that is stupid, but it's fine. And I saw the car coming 60 miles an hour and hit him, and we spun about 4 times, and then he was completely incoherent, and everything was in slow motion, but we were in the middle of a freeway in a canyon, and I was just waiting for us to get hit again, but some semi-trucks stopped because they saw us that we were hit, so that way they stopped traffic, and he stopped breathing in the ambulance, and I thought I was going to be a widow at 19. And so we'd only been married like 4 months at this time, and so because we were hit so hard and our car was completely totaled, which was the only car we owned, and we were so broke, like we had to move in with my parents, and yeah, so it was rough, and so we didn't have a car. I had to ride the bus, the UTA bus, to work to Gateway. It was like 6 hours on the bus. Are you kidding? Like, no. And so yeah, it was a rough moment for sure.
Wow.
And then that summer when we lived there at her mom's house, it was just a nightmare because we had an ambulance bill, a bunch of medical bills because of the car accident and stuff, and then
we didn't have a car,
and then also I just felt like we couldn't go anywhere because we didn't have a car. And another thing is my in-laws had to take me to work, and like it was just
a pride hit.
It was just really embarrassing.
Okay.
And the thing is, we worked our butts off to pay off the medical bills and stuff like that, and then end of the summer we had them paid off, and then we bought a $500 car that we found, and then we got an apartment in Taylorsville, and then that moved us there, and then but the thing is, like with me, in our marriage, I kept job hopping, and so like moving to job to job to job, and the thing is, like, I was never really satisfied, but the thing is, I would always fall back into pornography, and that would satisfy me for a moment. But the thing is, like, I would keep going back and forth
with like your degree,
with
where you were in school,
exactly,
as well as like jobs, trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, which so many people our age struggle from that, but it's like, it's also something that you don't really talk about. Instead, it's like, what are you doing with your life? And you're supposed to have an answer.
Dude, I'm pushing 50. I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So that was,
But the thing is, like, during that time that we moved, I kept struggling with it. I kept looking at it, and it just, the more I looked at it, the more, like, I felt like I didn't have any hope, and
that's not a good place to be when you're hopeless, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
I was getting to the point of being hopeless. I didn't know how to help him. I saw him start to spiral down, and I saw him start to say things like, "You'll be so much better off without me. Mm-hmm. You deserve a better husband than me. You could get someone else so easily." And like looking back, I can tell that those were like the signs now that I've like learned so much about it. And
in suicide prevention, those are things that are almost in every story, right?
Yeah, exactly. For sure. 100%.
Thinking, and I think sometimes your mind plays tricks on you to believe that, hey, the world would be better off, but that's never the fact. The world will never be better off without someone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I got to the point. So I did heating and air conditioning with my uncle, and then I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And so I jumped to a car salesman, and honestly, I would have been really good at it. I'm really good with people and stuff like that. But the thing is, I was so in my head of like, I was looking at pornography like every day at the time, and I didn't have the mindset. I wasn't there. And but the thing is, I got to the point, I got so low, I was like, Whitney doesn't need a man to look at this garbage every day and like this she needs the respect that that I made in the when we got married, and those covenants that we made. But the thing is, I wasn't doing that. I was just going through my day and looking at this garbage and stuff like that. And then I just got so low. I was like, I'm done. I am completely done. I don't want to be here. And if I shoot myself, I don't have to deal with this garbage.
So in your mind, you're thinking, struggling with the recovery and thinking, maybe I can't get a grip on this, and you're battling it, but you're not beating it. And I think you're probably thinking to yourself, that's where the hopelessness comes in, right? And so in turn, you think the world would be better off without Isaac.
Exactly. And I remember it was 2012?
2014.
2014?
No, 13. I don't know.
I think it was 2013, around there. Whitney was going to the University of Utah, and she actually was doing was it drug addiction?
Substance abuse addiction, because I just had a heart for people dealing with addictions in their marriages. And at this point, no one knew what I was going through, what he was going through. And because I studied addiction so much, I really did understand that this was like an addiction, and like that he wasn't looking at porn because I wasn't good enough. And I'm really grateful that I had that insight, because I know so many spouses or wives feel like they're not good enough, or they're not pretty enough, or don't perform good enough, or whatever. And I never took it that way. I saw the pain through him and saw that he was struggling and had this really hard thing going on, and I needed to do everything I could to give him hope that we can get through it together. So I'm so thankful that I know God blessed me with that, like just the heart of knowing that it's not me, and I need to be there for him. And so I was at the University of Utah. I was actually got accepted into that program, and I was on a scholarship, and I was there for, I was at a social work, like children's place, to be able to get an internship there. And I was there for an interview, and the interview was a really long interview. So I obviously didn't have my phone. And I got to my car, and I got to my phone, and I had like 5 missed calls from Isaac and a bunch of text messages. And the last text message said something with like, "I love you, you're going to be okay." And I just knew that like he was going to either be gone, or I wasn't going to get there home fast enough. And so at this point, it's almost like the car accident. I was driving so fast, yet I couldn't get there fast enough. I just remember it in slow motion. And I am calling and he's not answering the phone, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, am I going to get home to a dead body? Like, am I going to lose my husband? And we were living on the top floor at the time, and I race up the apartment, and no one's there, and his phone is laying on the bed, and the gun case was out, and I just didn't know like where the hell he is really. And so I run to some of our best friends that lived in our apartment, and I said, I don't know what to do. I think he's doing something stupid. Like, I just was in complete shock. And so then he is driving up. I see him in his car driving up, and his eyes were just completely black. Like, if you've never experienced something like this, where you see a person that is ready to take their life, especially the person you love more than anything, they're a different person. They're not there. His eyes were completely black, and he had just bought in bullets, and he said to me, "You came home too fast." Like, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm trying to, and like he was saying, when this happens, when he's in this turn, like going downward spiral, he's really impulsive, and can be really angry. It's kind of like talking to almost like a cougar, like that's gonna pounce. Like, you really have to talk slow and like be really calm, even though I'm freaking out. Yeah. And so I was trying to calm him down, like, babe, I love you, everything's gonna be okay. But he was completely dark in the eyes, and I grabbed the bullets from the car because it was just like an impulse. I didn't know what to do. And I threw him into the dumpster that was right next to us. And that made him angry. And he ran off. And this guy is a Lambert runner, so you can't catch him. I'm not going to catch him. And I just started freaking out. And call my mom, and I don't know what to do. And so I run to, again, the neighbor's house, and our friend's husband went to go look for Isaac. We lived right next to the Jordan River Parkway and Redwood Road. So I'm like, he's either going to run into like the streets or he's going to jump in the river. And I just didn't know what to do. It was the scariest day of my life for sure. And so luckily Kevin comes and finds you and had talked you down some way, somehow, 100%. And what did he say to you?
So pretty much what he said is, I can tell you're not all there, and I just need you to come with me. And he said it very quiet and not like you need to come with me, but like he just said it very polite and stuff like that. And I don't know, I just felt like, okay, I'll cooperate. So
yeah, and he came, and then Heidi, his wife, called the cops because she was freaking out and didn't know what to do. And so the cops show up at our apartment, and at this time Isaac's in our bedroom talking to his parents, and the cops really didn't do much. I just had said everything's fine, totally misunderstanding, and they just left, which I was grateful for, just for Isaac not to feel any worse or any more isolated, I guess. Yeah.
Because that is intimidating to have,
sure.
You're going through this turmoil on your own, to have police show up. It can.
Yeah.
But another thing is, honestly, that day, I kind of remember it, but I wasn't all there.
Yeah.
And, but the thing is, I do remember the cops were talking to Whitney, and the cops asked if I had the gun in my possession. And but the thing is, my dad, he took the gun and then put it in his gun safe, and so we didn't have the gun. But so the gun wasn't taken away, but my dad took care of it, and that's where we store our guns now, in his safe.
Yeah.
So
good.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it took probably about 4 hours to get Isaac to agree to go to the hospital. We've all had never been through this sort of situation before. And so you don't remember this day, but I remember it so vividly because I have so much PTSD from this day. I could remember every moment. But we went to the hospital, and we went into the emergency room and said that my husband has tried to commit suicide and he needs to see someone. And this was actually the job I wanted to get in the end. I wanted to work in hospitals because it's the job that pays the most, and be the social worker that help in these situations. But this experience completely changed my mind with that. And we get to the hospital, and we get put in this room that literally has concrete floor and a bed that has chains handcuffs to it. And to not make you feel crazy enough already that you're all of a sudden in this torture chamber almost. You know what I mean?
And that's what it feels like. And then they put you in a gown and take away everything from you. And so
take all your possessions.
We are working in a direction as a state to try to make that a more pleasant, comfortable experience. But it's got some ways to go, right?
Yeah. I mean, this luckily was a while ago, so hopefully things have changed.
Yeah.
And it has a bit.
Yeah. And so, but the social worker was just stone cold. And I'm sure, you get desensitized of whatever job that you do, and you're seeing cases like this over and over and over again. But as a young wife, this is my worst nightmare. So you would expect some empathy, and there just was no empathy there at all.
This is the person that holds your heart.
Yeah.
And to them, you're maybe feeling like another number.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. 100%. And so we were there for about 6 hours, and Isaac is just curled up in a ball, in the fetal position. His eyes are starting to come back, but still not fully there. We had some family members that were there with us, and all they kept talking about was how expensive this is going to be. And and that's like the last thing on
Not
my
what
mind.
you needed
Obviously,
to hear.
yeah, you know, and I just was grateful my husband was still alive and was hoping we could get past this. But unfortunately, at the time, and I know you've said that this has changed, we were forced to take an ambulance because apparently we weren't at the right hospital, even though we came in willingly. And he was ambulanced by himself. I wasn't allowed to go with him to the LDS hospital. So there's another bill that we're getting put with.
Well, then our situation is we're doing really well with coming up with ways to help people that are in suicidal crisis. But we are seeing so many numbers of people that are in suicidal crisis and needing that care. We don't have enough beds statewide to handle all of it. So it's not uncommon to get to a hospital thinking that they're going to be able to help you and them not having a bed available and having to transfer you. And so it is difficult, and I've been there. I've watched that unfold time and time again. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and it's hard and it's frustrating, and you're like, oh my gosh, like as if this day isn't already bad enough. You have to worry about an ambulance bill, and you're going in an ambulance, so it makes it scarier too.
Exactly.
And separated.
For sure. When you're like, I don't want to take my eyes off, like because you were so freaked out. But he goes in the ambulance by yourself, and then you're at the LDS hospital, and they
pretty much take me to the psych ward.
The psych ward.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make you feel good either.
And
it's not an attractive name, you know.
It's definitely not.
So
but the reason that we do this is a lot of times you'll get a minimum of a 72-hour hold where they can actually stabilize you, get the medications correct, get your body adjusted to the medications, and hopefully teach you some skills to deal with things as they, happen again. If you get in that position again, to have the skills to handle it.
Yeah. And so I just remember, like, I just felt like I was out of prison pretty much, and the doctors that I spoke to is pretty much I don't know, it felt like I was just another number, and like they're like, well, you are gonna kill yourself with pornography, and they didn't really understand like my pain. They just like, oh, guys look at that all the time. There's really no reason for you to take your life because of that. And I just felt like they don't really understand. They didn't hear me. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And so I was there for a week, and my wife did visit me here and there.
Yeah, and it was frightening. I had some amazing friends, and they're still in my life, that let me like just crash on their couch, and the husband actually let me sleep with his wife in the bed because I just was so afraid to be home by myself, and I don't know, it was hard. And so, but you could tell he wasn't, you really didn't necessarily come out healed by any means. It was like you were more broken just because, again, it was, I don't know, like a pride thing too, that you're like, oh my gosh, this just happened, and like now I'm still here, and all of those sorts of things.
Well, another thing is I would have to say I'm really grateful for my wife. She saved my life that day. Honestly, I would have not been here and sharing this with you guys. I would have not been here, and honestly, I'm grateful that she listened to the Spirit that day and rushed home as fast as she could. And I'm grateful for another chance. And but it's literally this addiction. It's a constant battle. You're just not gonna overnight. You're not gonna get healed. And
at that point, it kind of just continued. It just kind of went back to where we were before for almost a couple of years. And then I remember like distinctly being in my car, just like screaming to God, like, are you hearing me? Like, this has been so long. My husband's in so much pain. I'm in so much pain. And Isaac had done so much, like he had, at this point, we have taken so many more resources. Like, we haven't discussed that, but like, he had done the 12-step program, different programs amongst the church. Like, he was constantly
Trying
doing
to find
something to
something.
fix it. Yeah, it wasn't like we were being naive and just,
Sure.
oh, this will go away, because we know that's not the case. But, and we, after trying everything, nothing was working, and it was just, he was beating himself up so much, and it was just a lot. It was a lot to deal with. And finally, divine intervention, we had moved to Centerville, and which is probably our favorite place we've ever lived. And it was towards the holidays, and at that time, we had just moved in around Thanksgiving, Christmas-ish, and we were out with my family at the movies for Christmas, and he had another relapse that I didn't know about at the time, and the movie had triggered him, and again, those irrational, impulsive things after the movie. My mom had said something that set him off.
And the thing is, that night, I literally shouldn't treat your in-laws like this, but I did. I just blew up and I left. And we had 2 cars. But Whitney's family was like really angry with me because I just got up and left, and there wasn't enough seats for the other car, like for everyone to drive home safely and stuff like that. And
so I had to sit in the trunk.
Pretty much.
Fine. It's fine.
Yeah. So
and at the same time, like, my family's like, obviously, like, what the heck is wrong with Isaac? Like, why would he do this? And I'm trying to like back him up. At the same time, I am losing it inside because I have so much PTSD whenever he goes off on his own that he's going to do something stupid. And so, like, it's like,
and that's a valid worry.
Yeah, for sure. And so, and it's not a fair worry at all, because then you never can feel calm when you're by yourself, or when the spouse is by himself. Exactly. But yeah, he left, and he was so impulsive and angry that he said we're getting a divorce and that he's done. Yeah. And I like hadn't even done anything.
And you've been married how many years?
It was about about 5 years.
Yeah.
And I don't know, going through those 5 years, just going up and down, looking at that garbage and messing up over and over again, and I can't get my brain wrapped around it. And I felt like the biggest failure as a husband, and just looking at this garbage like day in and day out and stuff like that. And Whitney would be better without me. And so let's get a divorce. I'm done.
Now, did you feel like these feelings that you had, like, something was wrong with you? Did you feel like that was unique to you? Like, you were beyond repair? Did you feel like, hey, other people are going through this too? Or did you feel more like it was just you?
Honestly, I just felt like it was just me.
Yeah.
I felt like it was just me. And I don't know, like, with Whitney is a really she stays connected with her friends and stuff, like from high school, and like she has that. But with me, I didn't really do that. I graduated high school, I got married, and then all my friends just disappeared.
Yeah,
and
it's something you have to work on to keep. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And
you just want we got married so young, and all of our friends weren't married yet.
Exactly.
That it's like they kind of almost thought like, oh, you're married, we're gonna like leave you alone. We had the scarlet letter on us because we were married so young.
These are weirdos.
Yeah. So like, hey, you're gonna be married and need friends, so be our friend right now.
For those of you listening outside the state of Utah, we get married young.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and then with that, I just felt like I didn't Winnie deserved a better man, and so that's why I felt like that. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to get a divorce. And I just I'm done. Like I'm done, and I'll just figure it out on my own.
Mm-hmm. And
because you're trying to save the pain that she's going through,
exactly,
and give her a fair shake at having the life that she is picturing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then a man to love and respect her each and every day, and like the not the constant worry of her, like when I am by myself,
yeah.
and then the constant worry that he's gonna slip up. He's the constant worry, like does that make sense?
Totally. And so you're trying to do the best by her, and she's here in the shadows going, I love you. Exactly. She wants you. She's not worried about somebody else. She loves you. And
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think that's, and knowing you guys the way I know you, you have a strong love, and that's strong love and patient woman. I think that's
I'm
got
very
you.
patient.
That's got you through the years. So
Exactly.
Yeah. But then you left for the night, and then one of my brothers was awesome and came and stayed with me that night at our house. And so I wasn't by myself because I just didn't know if he was going to come back. And when he's irrational like that, it's like you can't do anything. Like he's going to do what he's going to do, and that's so frustrating. There's nothing you can do about it. But we had again just moved, and so we had a new church leader I had never met, and it was the day after Christmas, and I think I called him and said, I'm so sorry to bother you the day after Christmas, but please meet with me and my husband because I don't know what to do. Like, he's gonna leave me, and I don't want him to leave me. And so we met with him, and it was that meeting that he finally stuck some sense into. It was the first leader that like truly cared and truly saw how hard we're fighting and how hard this is for us. And he said to Isaac point blank, I mean, you can go ahead.
So our religious leader said pretty much, I need to get my stuff together, and like I need to. There is a woman. There's a wife that loves you and that cares for you and wants to stick with you, but you're the one with all the issues. So why in the heck do you want to leave her? And that kind of really just a light bulb went on in my head, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like I need to fight, and I need to stay with her, and because I made a promise that I was going to be with her for all time and eternity. And
you took that serious.
Yeah, I took it very serious. And our religious leader said pretty much there's a gentleman that is helping out with a bunch of other people in the neighborhood. In the neighborhood. His name is Dennis Parker, and he's a hypnotherapist. And hypnotherapy, it's not cheap. It's expensive. Yeah. And the thing is, like, we're middle class folks, and we don't have a whole lot of money and stuff. And I was very resistant.
Didn't want to pay for
I
it.
didn't want to pay for it because it was like $150 per session or $135. I don't remember, but I for an hour, and so the guy's getting paid pretty low, and I just like I don't want to pay that. But the bishop, the religious leader, pretty much was saying, like, you need to do this. And so I decided to look in our budget and see what I could do to actually go see this guy.
So we went, and I was super skeptical, but I mean, at this point, I was like, you know what? Maybe this is God's answer. Like, the fact that he's helping so many other couples in the neighborhood that are dealing with the same thing. Because again, as you said at the beginning, this is such a stigma. No one talks about this. Not only did I get married so young, and I felt like I couldn't talk to anyone because I was married so young and no one else was married, and like that we were dealing with this. I didn't want people to look at Isaac differently, stuff like that. So it's not something you talk about.
You want to protect him. And unfortunately, addiction in any form thrives in secrecy. Right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally. And like, so yeah, we went, and Dennis is amazing. He has such incredible resources, and he helps thousands of people. And he has pretty much a rate that after 6 sessions, you will have the tools to be able to control it. And that's exactly what happened. Within 6 sessions, I saw Isaac turn into a completely different person. And it was incredible. It was the biggest blessing we've ever had in our lives. It was the miracle we'd been praying for 5 years. And yeah.
Yeah.
And I can see when you guys share that story, a lot of emotion.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
I'm really grateful for that move, and I'm grateful for our religious leader to refer us to him, and I'm grateful for Dennis and what he's done. And so I had sobriety for about a year and a half, 2 years, around there. Which
is a big deal. So prior to the hypnotherapy, you were having moments of sobriety about
Like
how
maybe like 3 to 4 months.
3 to 4
around
months. So to hit this is a milestone.
Yeah.
This
It
is
was
huge.
It was huge.
And to not have those emotional anger outbursts, like more than ever,
Yeah.
he's got that pretty much completely under control ever since Dennis. And that's
Way
that
cool.
itself is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I'll take that.
That's a
any
win.
day. Yeah.
It's a win.
Yeah. Seriously, like, oh my gosh, the beast turned into the prince. Hello, ready for it, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
so the thing is, I always wanted to serve our country and serve in the military. And I told Whitney right when we first got married, and she told me, heck no. And so,
Tough deal.
Yeah.
yeah. And so
love our country, but just wasn't.
I kept bugging her and bugging her and bugging her and bugging her over the years and stuff. And I just felt like if I did join, I would have a purpose. And like,
And we'd been through so many jobs and
Yeah.
figuring out what you wanted that I was like, you know what? Like, let's do it. And like, he just did have such a passion for the country and wanted to serve that I'm like, I would be doing a disservice if I didn't
let him.
let him do it. And so we did it. We joined.
Yeah,
He joined. I didn't join.
But
So you were right along with
Yeah,
him.
yeah. I was forced to go,
This
but
was
I
a
didn't
part
join.
of the deal.
Yeah.
And so, but the thing is, Whitney, my wife, she was really nervous because the military, it's not the most pleasant crowd. Like it's F-bombs left and
crass.
right, and
Yeah.
pornography and strip bars, all the stuff, alcohol, addiction, and it's not the best environment. But the thing is, like, by the training that Dennis gave me, like, okay, I got a handle on this. I can do this.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
It
like,
instilled some confidence in you that you've got control now.
exactly.
And you had control for a long time.
For a long
like,
time. Very
even
long
in
time.
boot camp, because he was Mormon in the boot camp, and obviously there's not a lot of people. I think you were the only one there at the time. They would purposely shove pornography into his face because they knew that that's something that we don't necessarily look at, and it's just like, but you had a handle on it. You were very like, I'm going to be strong, and he really was, which was amazing and a big blessing for sure.
True.
Absolutely.
So,
And the thing is, like, through our military career and stuff, I went through basic training. I went to Missouri, and then I went to Fort Lee, Virginia. And then after that, I was gone like for 6 months. So Whitney and I, we didn't see each other for a good while. And then
back to mission letter writing.
yeah, pretty much.
What the heck?
And so we actually had a lot of practice. So, yeah. But
Been there, done that.
yeah, exactly. So, but the thing is, I got my orders, and then we got sent to Fort Carson, Colorado,
Gotcha.
and
A little
so
closer to home.
yeah. So we're actually really grateful for that, and so we moved.
Fast forward to you getting hurt, and that's
Okay.
pretty much
Yeah. So with my military career, I excelled at it. I did very well. I was always getting promoted on before the time was up and stuff like that. And then in 2018, I was like one of the top PT studs and stuff like that.
And he was the old man, because most people
Yeah.
join the military right out of high school, and you joined at 27,
26.
And so he was old. He was the old man, but he had the highest PT score on Fort Carson,
Way cool.
which was really, really awesome for sure.
So-
Yeah. But
And then the thing is, my platoon, we had deployment orders, and we were getting ready for that, and we're training for that. And so we're just doing normal PT in the morning at blood crack of dawn and stuff like that. And we're just doing it, and we're doing these interval training and stuff like that. And so you stop at each thing, and then I was just running, and I heard a pop in my foot, and I was like, whoa, like something's going on. And I went to my physician in the military, and he's like, "Oh, he took an X-ray, and he's like, "Oh, you probably just sprained it." And I'm like, "No, I've sprained my ankle before, and this is something different. I can tell." and he didn't listen to me. And he's like, so I walked on it for 2 months, and I went to another physician, and he's like, let's do an MRI. And the thing is, I did the MRI, and literally within hours, he called me, and he's like, you tore every ligament in your foot, you tore every tendon, and you dislocated your heel. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, and then I was like, and then plus I was about ready to get promoted to sergeant, and I was pretty excited about that. I was going to go on my first tour, and then this happened, and then pretty much the doctor is just like, you're staying home, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and he couldn't even like go to work. He was pretty much home 24/7, and this is a guy that doesn't even like to watch TV. So to be like, we don't even own any gaming system. He doesn't even play video games. So I'm like, okay, we're in trouble. So it was a lot, and then you had to get surgery. And at the time, I have my own business, and that's been our main source of income for a long time. And so I had a big business event I had to go to, even though my husband's going into surgery. And his parents were awesome to come and stay with him during the surgery. But again, that's what started the self-isolation and him being by himself, and now he's home all the time, and I'm gone for business trips. Yeah, and so it was a perfect recipe for it to get worse.
Absolutely.
You know, and so.
And then my parents left for the week, and then Whitney was coming home that day, and then so my parents left, and then. And
I had so he was now officially alone because I was taking
by myself
taking
at
my
the house.
business partners out for dinner once I had gotten home, and
then the thing is, I was just by myself, and I just felt like I haven't walked over almost a year, and I just felt like I don't know, I let the natural man, I let the adversary, the Satan, I let Satan get into my head. And I took my pornography to the next level, and right after I did it though, I felt so bad. The thing is, like, I had all this sobriety and like over 2 years, like I was doing so well, and through all the crap and all my colleagues and my army buddies, they would always ask me to go to the strip clubs and like shove all this pornography at me, and then I messed up. I really messed up, and I called my mother-in-law, and I felt like I could talk to her, and I called her and told her what happened, and my mother-in-law is like, we love you, but you need to tell your spouse like what happened and stuff like that, but it's really up to her, like for her to stay with you or to leave, and I knew the consequences, and I was willing to take that because I messed up and she didn't do anything.
And you called while I was out on this business dinner or whatever, and I just went into shock because I've never, like, he had called before, like when he'd messed up, but this, like he said, was an entire different level because of course he's been sober for so long, and you have to go to a higher level, and this was definitely
and I think you had a little bit of a false sense of
hope
that, hey, we're fixed,
we're past it,
we're fixed for
sure. And I went into complete shock, and I had to. And I didn't even know that you called my mom first and let my mom supported you in that way, which is amazing. And
that's an amazing mother-in-law.
Yeah,
exactly.
Shout out to mom-in-law.
Yeah, I truly love her.
Yeah,
she's really awesome.
Just the love that she's always given Isaac through everything, and even me, like supporting me being with Isaac when like through freaking hell and high water, is awesome. Anyway, and so. I needed to know, knew there had to be respect for myself because I understand the addiction. However, this was to a whole nother level that you've got to like draw the line somewhere. Even though you love this person, you need to like respect and love yourself enough to not stay with someone. Yeah. And set some boundaries that need to be set. So I left, and it was hard for me to leave because normally we would just get through it, but like I didn't have anywhere to go because I was in Colorado. So I booked an Airbnb that he wouldn't know where I was, and I just left for like 4 days. And it was a hard 4 days. I was either reading my scriptures, bawling my face off, or going for a run, or a couple of my girlfriends were always showing up with chocolate or something to be like, we're gonna get through this, it's gonna be okay. And I remember reading a scripture and praying that like, just like that, I don't remember exactly which one it was, but it said something that if you continue on, things will get better. Like, stay the course. Like, you will be rewarded if you stay the course. And at this, like, I couldn't look at Isaac. Like, I was so angry. I didn't want to kiss him. I didn't want to touch him. I just felt gross. And I'm like, how am I supposed to? So once I came back, we pretty much didn't like we hardly talked. And I thought to myself, like, I've got to make him earn me back. Like, you need to make me fall in love with you again.
I think that's natural.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, for sure. And I'm like, I'm not going to touch you, and all these things. And it was probably for about a week that went on, and it wasn't getting better.
No.
And he was super apologetic. He, of course, like you always are, and no, I deserve more. And thankfully at this time, you really didn't have the suicide hat on. It was more just like, I am so sorry. Like,
Yeah.
like, you know, so I wasn't having to like grovel back to him to make sure he wasn't going to kill himself, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had that, but we were meeting with Dennis again, because Dennis knows our story and knows our situation, that we did a Zoom call, like counseling session. And you could tell he felt so bad for us with what was happening. And he said something so profound that I did not want to hear, but that 100% saved our marriage, was that you are still married. You need to continue to act married. And if you don't, those spots that you're leaving emptiness for, Satan's going to creep in, and either of you are going to go search for it somewhere else. And that night, I'm like, I do not want to kiss this guy. But I had prayed for like that something would be okay. And we did. We started to act married again. And even though I was still in a lot of pain, it started to heal a little quicker. But yeah.
So, I started to heal, and Dennis was helping us out. We're doing Zoom calls. He was here in Utah, and then he does it over online and stuff like that to help other people. But the thing is, like, so it was really close to my birthday, and I usually, Whitney and I, we go to we usually live here in Utah. And so we have a big celebration with my family and stuff like that.
His birthday's right next to the 4th of July. So,
Gotcha.
So, and the thing is, we, with the military, it's really hard to get leave because you got to fill out a bunch of paperwork and stuff like that.
and you only have so many days.
You have only so many days and stuff like that. And then, so the thing is, like, we felt like we should just obey the rules. And so, instead of going illegally. And so we obeyed the rules that time, and Whitney planned this epic birthday. We went to the Rockies game, saw fireworks, and
Nice.
all the cool stuff. But that night, after the 4th of July, so I had my birthday on the 3rd. We did the 4th, went to the Rockies games, had a great time, and my mom calls, and
well, we find out that your brother's missing.
yeah, my little brother, and I'm really close to him, and he's missing, and I'm like, what the crap? Like, what the freak is going on? And so I tried to call him, I tried to message him, I just tried to figure out like how to track him on his phone and stuff like that, and he's nowhere to be found.
And because we have obviously been through this a couple times, I think we both were feeling like so worried, because we know how you are when you're in that state, when you're not taking phone calls, when you aren't talking to anyone. We were just like so scared because we've been there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And then Whitney and I, we stayed up till midnight. My family and his wife were looking and looking and looking and looking. And
he was recently married as well.
Yeah, he was...
married for 5 months.
It was, I think it was 9 months.
9 months.
Yeah, 9 months. And the thing is, like, he's nowhere to be found. And I felt... I don't know, I just had a very distraught feeling in my stomach that he was going to come back. And the next morning, like at 5 a.m., my mom calls me and tells me he's gone. He committed suicide. And I just felt like I literally lost a part of me, like, because my little brother, Jared, and I were really close, and we always would talk on the phone, and it just, I don't know, I felt like I was broken.
Yeah, it was the worst morning ever, 100%. And even though we still were struggling, I had to instantly put on my hat of like, I am this wife, I need to be the rock. And so we had to then go and get request to leave so that way we could leave. So this was at like 5 a.m.
5 a.m.
We go to the sergeant as quickly as we could. And the military does not have this set up well at all. No. But anyone that's in the military knows it takes forever to do anything. And so we're in the office and we're just having to repeat over and over again, like, what happened? Is he dead? How'd he die? And like, we're trying to even grasp
like, what the frick is going on?
And so that we're having to repeat this over and over and over again. It was like a living nightmare. And we were just getting more and more like, I can't believe he's gone. I can't believe he's gone. Like, believing it and hearing it. And that took like 5 hours before we were even able to leave Colorado. We like packed as quickly as we could. And then now we have to drive 9 hours to Colorado. And it was hard. Yeah, it was horrible.
It was pretty rough and
totally unexpected.
Yeah,
completely unexpected.
No one knew why, and the police told us why, and like
not why, but different things that we didn't know that were going on.
What were going on and stuff like that. And he had something similar that like he was doing the same thing with me. Like with pornography and stuff like that.
Very parallel.
Very parallel. And I felt like, when I found that out, I felt like I didn't do my part. I didn't really share my story with him. And if I would have shared and not kept it hush hush, and like the stigma, like, oh, you got to keep this quiet. Like if I would have shared that with him, it might have made a pop a light bulb in his head, and like I just felt like I didn't do my part.
Yeah.
But both of you were kind of in the same position where you felt like this was something only you were dealing with. Exactly. And it was your burden to carry, that you were the odd man out, that this was just you dealing with it. And likely, I mean, we can't speak for Jared, but he likely felt very similar.
Exactly.
Like, this is something's wrong with me. And that's a tough thing. Yeah. It really is.
I think it's really painful to know that you know exactly how he felt. Like, you know, and where it's like a lot of people that have not been through this don't know what people are thinking before that happens. But to be someone in a very similar situation, to know exactly how he felt and to be your brother is the worst. And I mean, in my head, I had planned Isaac's funeral so many times, I think just as a coping because of PTSD. And so like to live through Jared's funeral was like my nightmare coming true.
Just gut-wrenching, huh?
Yeah, like 100%. And I was fearful of the copycat because when statistics is when someone close to you in your family take their life, usually there's another one that's going to follow. And so I was just so scared that Isaac was going to be the one to follow. With
Definitely
everything.
takes that right back to the top of your worry list. I am so sorry for your loss.
Thanks.
I remember that day like it was yesterday too, and such a, there's nothing I can do or say that would take that pain away from you. But if Jared was here with us today, what would you say to him?
I would have said to him, I love you so much, and I just want you to know that no matter what you do, no matter the falls or the sins that we commit or the pitfalls that we have, there's always hope, no matter what. And there's always hope to overcome those things. And the thing is, I wish that I shared my story with him. But the thing is, what's crazy is Whitney and I, a little while ago, it was about 3 or 4 years ago.
Once you had met with Dennis.
When we met with Dennis, we shared like a little clip of our story. And a week before this whole thing happened of no one knowing and stuff like that, Jared and Angel were watching that little clip, that 12-minute video on YouTube, and what did he say to Angel?
That because Angel had asked, like, have you ever dealt with this before? Just like as, having a conversation as a husband and wife. And he had said that if he had that same issue, he would never tell anyone, which is the stigma to not tell anyone. And I remember asking Isaac, it was actually Isaac's idea. I was Mrs. Stansbury Park at the time, competing for Mrs. Utah. And he said, let's share our story. If we can change someone's life, let's change someone's life. But I think you wish that you could have personally talked to him,
had that one-on-one
conversation.
Well, and I remember, because I'm friends with Angel on social media, and I remember when she shared it, that's when I first became familiar with kind of your story in that 12-minute clip, just a little snapshot. And I remembered thinking to myself, how cool is this that somebody's willing to lay it out there and just say, hey, this is me, and this is what I'm going through. Okay. And I remember really respecting you, thinking that's way cool. It really is, because it takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
It's definitely not something you want to tell people.
Tell the whole world.
But your truth is your truth.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I would much rather have somebody lay out their truth than to be pretend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just felt like with Jared at his funeral, seeing the casket and everything, I just felt like he's gone. I'll never see him again here on this earth. And I kind of came to terms with that. And so the thing is, we went back to Colorado, and I've been doing pretty well and stuff like that. And then so I got medically discharged from the military because of my injury and stuff like that. And then we decided to move in with her parents to help her parents out, and then to help us out, go both ways. And
we only, getting medically discharged, you have all of a sudden you're out. We didn't even have time to look for a house. It's okay, get out of Colorado. And we're okay.
So we decided to move in to save money and stuff like that. And then the thing is, during that time, I had so I was a diesel mechanic in the Army, and I felt like that's what I needed to do. And so I was going to go to school, and but kind of the same thing,
In 2014.
In 2014, I was hopping job to job to job, and
Trying to find a purpose.
Find a purpose again. And thing is, I had so since that last incident in Colorado, right before my brother's death, I had a toll on it. Like it's been, I think it's been like like a year and a half around there, and sobriety. And but with dealing with this and like all the stress of trying to like figure out what I want to do with my life and all that, and living at my mother-in-law's house and stuff like that, and I just felt like I wasn't worth, like I wasn't supporting my family. I wasn't just, and then I fell like back into the committed suicide. So one day I told Whitney, I was just like, I'm going to go for a drive, and I didn't tell her I was going, and I didn't.
And up to this point, again, this time there was not signs. I mean, there was more like,
it was all internal.
Right.
Internal.
Because I knew we all were struggling. I mean, it's hard living in your family's house, and you were trying to figure out what you wanted to do, and it's just, and being out of the military, that's a huge letdown. You think it's going to be great, but you have this sense of accomplishment being in the military, and then being medically discharged and not being able to walk for a year was a lot. And so there was no signs, but then you isolated yourself again that day, and he disappeared and wasn't texting me, wouldn't call me. And I knew like something's going on, and I couldn't get a hold of him. And I went to Jared's grave. Yeah. And I just was praying my heart out. Like, Jared, now is the time you got to be with Isaac. Like, you've got to save Isaac.
And so that day I was about ready to take my life again, and I had the gun up to my head, and I just, when I was about ready to pull the trigger, I heard a whisper, a very intent whisper in my ear. And it said, Isaac, it's not your time. You need to love, and all the people that love you will be so hurt if you go. And so I unloaded the gun, I put the gun away, and I drove back. And the thing is, at the time, I felt like I shouldn't tell Whitney because she already had so much PTSD and stuff like that. And so
you didn't want to hurt her again.
I didn't want to hurt her again and stuff like that. And so I just told her I just needed some time, and I was away and stuff like that. But I don't know, going like a month ago, I was going through a very rough time, and a company, I won't mention any names and stuff, but they just treated me not so good, and they withheld a lot of money from me, and they didn't pay me what I deserved, and that really just kind of put me in the rabbit hole. And
those triggers again.
Exactly. And I was like, crap, like how am I gonna like pay my bills and stuff like that? And the thing is, I just told Whitney, and she had a panic attack, and I felt so bad. And I felt so bad. And the thing is, like, as a man, you need to be the rock. You need to love and support your family. You need to have a roof over your head and take care of them, have money on the table, food, and all this stuff. And that's how we are raised as men, and that's what we need to do. And the thing is, I've gotten better, and with sense.
Well, even that time, my mom ended up coming over at that time, and she had said to you again that she loved you and that we all need you, and let's like promise each other that we're never going to go there again. Like, promise me you're never going to take your life, and you promised me that you're never going to take, and that's something you want to do with someone that, you know, is suicidal, is to like have them promise, you know, not that that's going to be a magical thing, but still, and just kind of understanding, I think that that there is hope. There's hope if you're struggling with an addiction that you can come back from it. There's hope if you are trying to figure out your life that you're going to be able to figure it out, and that there's never something you can't come back from.
Exactly. And I just want to say to all the people out there who are listening, thing is, like, with realizing what my brother, like, what he did, and then, like, kind of the same similar story that I have, but in his circumstances, he's gone. Like, he's gone. But I'm still here today, and I'm still fighting. But the thing is, I just want everyone to know that with the stigma of this addiction, like, don't keep it hush hush. Like, get the help that you need, and actually, like, talk to someone, and just don't, like, keep it in, because it will tear you apart. It will change you. And, like, the things that I went through and the time, like, I've been struggling with this, like, majority of my life. But the thing is, I know without a doubt that we can overcome this. We can.
Absolutely. And it's the same thing in mental health. People don't want to discuss it because they're afraid it's going to bring shame, and it's going to bring labels and this and that to it. So I think that's really the most amazing thing that you're doing, is to just say, hey, you're not the only one. I mean, those statistics we mentioned at the beginning let you know this is a vast, wide problem. I mean, it's everywhere.
Exactly. And I just want to say, honestly, if I didn't have my wife and the hope that she had for me, I probably wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't.
Yeah. And I would say, I know that so many wives do have husbands that struggle with pornography, and now it's almost like a wives thing. Like, sometimes women have the pornography issue, and to know, just take yourself out of it and realize that it's something that they're struggling with, and they can get through it, but they need your love. Like, as women, we are so powerful, and I think our love is really, really powerful, and our patience that we can have if we take the selfishness out of it and maybe stop internalizing the addiction, because it has nothing to do with us. And so that way we can ride the road to recovery together, and it really will strengthen your marriage tenfold. Like I said at the beginning, I wouldn't have wanted to know what was coming, but now that we've been through what we've been through, I would do it all over again, because I am more in love with him now than I've ever been.
Absolutely. What a cool story. And the thing that I've noticed the whole time I've been watching you too. The whole time I've been watching you guys, I can see the love you have for each other. And that's amazing. And so when you go through the rough times, because let's face it, this might not be smooth sailing from here on out. But remember the love that you have, because in all honesty, that's something that's rare. I mean, it really is. And you guys have something amazing. And you better treat her right.
Oh, yeah.
She's been, and I think there's the way that, from what my understanding is, the way that pornography is viewed on a woman's side versus a men's side is totally different.
Very different.
The women might not understand the men might not understand the woman, but in all honesty, you guys have kind of said, this is us, we're going to make this work, we're going to come out of this stronger than we ever were. And we mentioned when we were talking that God gives you weaknesses. Mm-hmm. He gives you weaknesses and says, I give them to you so I can make them strengths. And
exactly.
While this might be a weakness, and this might be something you have struggled most of your life with, doing things like this or making it a strength to where you can make a difference. Because I can tell you, Jared's got to be really proud of you. Because you've got the courage to do what he wasn't able to do. And I'm not putting him down, because that's just a tough thing. It's a tough thing that you're doing, and you deserve all the credit in the world, because it is a tough thing. And I'll tell you what, if you're watching this or you're listening to it, and this is something that's plagued your life or you've struggled with, or you know somebody that's struggling with it, man, reach out. Reach out, because it'll be much easier to do when you're not handling it all alone, right?
Exactly.
So I want to thank you guys for coming tonight.
Thank you so much for
And
having us
I really
on.
appreciate it.
I really believe that this is going to make a difference for people. And if you have been where Jared or Isaac have been, and you have felt those struggles and felt that kind of voice in your head saying that the world would be better off without you, that's a lie. It's a lie. The world is not better for you without Jared. The world would not be better for Whitney without Isaac. So reach out. Talk to somebody that you trust. If you can't have somebody that you can think of to talk to, reach out to the Lifeline. Call 1-800-273-8255. But have that conversation, because there's healing in telling your story, right? Mm-hmm. There's healing that comes through it. So again, thank you so much for watching the Life's Worth Living podcast. We're so grateful for you being here tonight and spending an hour with us and hearing this story. I hope it helped. If you would like to reach out to me, if you have ideas for stories that you'd like us to have on this podcast, reach out to me at lifesworthlivingfoundation@gmail.com. You can find Life's Worth Living on every social media platform, Life's Worth Living Foundation. And thank you again. I'm your host, John Gossett. I don't know what brought you here, but I am so grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that you've been able to hopefully get something out of this. I know that I get something out of it each week. I'm just kind of around for the show. I really enjoy bringing friends of mine to introduce to all of you and let you hear these stories that I think everyone needs to hear. So thanks again. We look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.
Life's Worth Living Foundation.